A resident in South Wales noticed a strange, jelly-like growth on their wooden front door. It looked like a brown, rubbery ear sticking out of the wood. It appeared seemingly overnight after rain. This is Auricularia, Auricula judi, commonly known as the jelly ear fungus. It typically grows on dead or dying elder trees, but it will happily colonize any damp, rotting wood. Finding this growing on your front door is bad news. It means the wood of the door is significantly saturated with water and is rotting from the inside out. The fungus is just the fruiting body. The mycelium is already eating your door. A couple cleaning out their junk drawer found a metal bracket they had kept for years, knowing it was important, but forgetting its use. It is a bent piece of metal, square-ish in shape, likely designed to hook over something. This is an over-the-door hook or bracket. The square, U-shaped end is designed to fit perfectly over the top edge of a standard residential door. The other end usually holds a coat rack, a shoe organizer, or a holiday wreath. They are the kind of item you take down when painting or moving and toss in a drawer, only to rediscover years later when you find your wreath has nothing to hang on. In a pub in the UK, patrons were debating the function of an object on the mantelpiece. It was rigid, possibly plastic, and looked like a tall, narrow container. It wasn't wood, despite the pub's rustic decor. This appears to be a vase specifically designed for dried floral arrangements or decorative branches. In the 1990s and early 2000s, stores like IKEA and Pier 1 sold tall, composite, or resin vases meant to hold sticks or dried reeds, which were a massive interior design trend at the time. It likely ended up in the pub as a donated decoration or a leftover from a previous refurbishment, sitting there collecting dust long after the trend faded. Found in the woods, this tool looks like a metal clamp with a ratcheting mechanism or a lever. It is heavy and rusted. It resembles a come-along winch, but is shaped differently. This is a fence stretcher or a wire tensioner. Farmers and ranchers use this tool to pull barbed wire or woven wire fences tight before stapling them to the fence posts. The tool grips the wire and uses leverage to pull it taut. It's common to find these abandoned along old fence lines in the woods, left behind after a repair job decades ago. It's an essential tool for maintaining property boundaries in rural areas. Found on a beach in Barbados, this object is a solid, shiny, irregular lump about 2 inches long. It looks like a silver rock or a nugget. This is a campfire nugget, a blob of melted aluminum. When people throw beer or soda cans into a beach bonfire, the fire gets hot enough to melt the aluminum, which melts at around 1220 digger or 660 digger. The metal pools at the bottom of the fire pit, mixing with sand and ash. Once it cools and the tide washes over it, you are left with these shiny, amorphous metal blobs that look like natural formations, but are actually just trash, turned into art by fire. A user found a 4-inch hexagonal metal tube with holes through the sides in a box of junk. It looks like a pipe, but the hexagonal shape suggests it fits a bolt. This is a tubular box spanner, also known as a tube socket wrench. It is a simple, lightweight tool, often included in automotive toolkits or with chainsaw maintenance sets. You place the tube over a spark plug or a recessed bolt, then slide a metal rod, a Tommy bar, through the cross holes to create a T-handle for leverage. It's a classic, inexpensive tool design that is still used today for reaching bolts in tight spaces. A user found a strange metal device labeled photolipon or similar. It consists of a metal stand with a spiral coil and a pin mechanism. It looks scientific or possibly related to photography, but the mechanics involve holding something upright. How does this contraption work? This is a vintage candle timer or automatic candle extinguisher. You place a candle in the holder and insert the metal pin into the wax at the specific level where you want the burning to stop. When the candle burns down to that point, the wax melts around the pin, releasing the spring-loaded mechanism, the hood or flap, which snaps over the flame to snuff it out. It was a clever safety device used to ensure a candle wouldn't burn all night while you slept. Found on a car in the morning, a soft, bad-smelling blob looked like it had been dropped by a bird. It wasn't just bird poop, it was a substantial, fleshy mass. The smell was not rotten, but not good, likely fermented. This is likely a rotten fermented pear, or similar fruit, dropped by a bird or a squirrel. Animals often carry fruit into trees to eat. If they drop it, it splats onto whatever is below, in this case, your car. The bad but not rotten smell is the scent of fermentation, as the sugars in the fruit turn into alcohol. It's a messy, sticky gift from nature that can damage car paint if the acids are left to sit for too long. A walker in Ireland was slightly terrified to find a clean, white animal skeleton in a wheat field near a busy road. The skull and spine were intact, and it was small, about 15 inches long. They worried it was something exotic or dangerous, though their dog was just curiously sniffing it. Based on the location in Ireland and the skeletal structure, this is likely the remains of a fox, or possibly a domestic cat. Scavengers like birds and insects can pick a carcass clean with surprising speed, leaving behind a pristine-looking skeleton that looks spooky to passers-by. While finding bones can be unsettling, it's a natural part of the ecosystem. As the commenters reassured the finder, "No need to be terrified, it can't hurt you." A user posted a picture of a shard of glass found on a late 1900s homestead in Colorado, asking what it was. The post went viral, not because of the glass, but because of the phrasing. To the finder, late 1900s meant the 1990s. To the commenters, it sounded like they were talking about the 1890s. While the glass itself is just a fragment of a common bottle or jar, likely from the mid to late 20th century, the real story here is the generational language gap. The Reddit community had a field day with the caption, with many users joking, "I was born in the late 1900s," realizing that to a younger generation, the 1980s and 90s are now considered historical homestead eras. The object became secondary to the sudden realization of getting old. Found in a collection, this is a carved wooden figure of a man. The top half of his body detaches to reveal a small platform, and there is a hole drilled through his mouth. It looks like a decorative statue, but the hidden compartment suggests a function. This is a smoker, or a cone incense burner. You place a lit cone of incense on the base inside the figure's body and replace the top half. As the incense burns, the smoke rises and travels out through the hole in the mouth, making it look like the little wooden man is smoking a pipe or blowing smoke rings. It's a whimsical style of burner, often associated with German folk art, Räuchermann, though this specific one might be a simpler souvenir version. Here we have another case of random little piles of sand found in a kitchen drawer. The homeowner noted there was nothing above the drawer that would produce sawdust. They were concerned about pests. Once again, this is the telltale sign of dry wood termites. These piles of sand are actually fecal pellets, frass, being kicked out of the wood above the drawer. The termites eat the wood from the inside out and create small kick-out holes to dispose of their waste. If you see these piles reappear after cleaning them up, you have an active infestation that requires professional fumigation. A user found a small, gray plastic sword under their sink. It's only a few inches long and looks like a tiny weapon. They weren't sure if it was a cocktail pick or a piece of a model kit. By the power of Grayskull, you have found a toy power sword from the Masters of the Universe action figure line, specifically belonging to He-Man. This iconic accessory was included with the action figures in the 1980s. Finding one under a sink suggests a child lost it decades ago, and it has been waiting in the dark to be reclaimed. It's a wave of nostalgia for anyone who grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons. A walker found a red egg-looking thing while on a walk. It was disturbing. It looked like a red stone with human features, lips, a nose, and eyes, scattered randomly across its surface. The finder washed it off and asked if it had cultural significance. This is a behelit, specifically the egg of the king, a prop from the famous manga and anime series Berserk. In the story, this supernatural object is a key to summoning demons and sacrificing one's humanity for power. While it looks like a cursed artifact, in the real world, it is a resin or plastic collectible dropped by a fan or a cosplayer. It's not an ancient relic, but to fans of the series, it represents a terrifying omen. Found in a bag of vintage kitchen tools, this object was unrecognizable due to heavy corrosion. It was about the size of a lighter. The metal was flaking and green. This is likely the remains of a cheap, metal-handled vegetable peeler or a can opener that has suffered from severe oxidation. In the mid-20th century, many utensils were made of chrome-plated steel or pot metal. Once the plating chips off, moisture gets in and destroys the base metal, causing it to swell and crumble. In this state, it is essentially unrecognizable garbage and should be discarded. A frustrated office worker noticed semi-symmetrical wear marks appearing on the sleeves of all their button-up shirts. It was happening to brand new clothes, always in the same spot on the forearm. They thought it might be moths or a washing machine defect. What is eating holes in these sleeves? The culprit is almost certainly the user's environment, specifically their desk chair or car interior. This type of damage is caused by friction against a hard surface. If the armrests of an office chair have exposed screws, rough plastic edges, or if the center console of a car has a damaged trim piece, it acts like sandpaper. Every time the user rests their arms to type or drive, the fabric rubs against the rough spot, eventually wearing through the fibers and creating these mysterious holes. A concerned homeowner found spooky lil piles of what looked like sand or dust in their kitchen drawer. There was nothing above the drawer that could have spilled. Upon closer inspection, the sand grains were uniform and hexagonal in shape. This specific shape is the key to identifying the intruder. This is a confirmed sign of dry wood termites. The sand is actually termite frass, or fecal pellets. Unlike subterranean termites that build mud tubes, dry wood termites live inside the wood they are eating. They push their droppings out of small kick-out holes to keep their tunnels clean. The hexagonal shape of the pellets is characteristic of termites. Under a microscope, they look like tiny deflated footballs. Finding these piles means the termites are active in the cabinets above the drawer. Found among a grandmother's old things, this object is a small leather pouch with a heavy metal strip attached to the bottom edge. It looks like a tiny purse, but the metal part is thick and curved, made of high carbon steel. It has no markings. What is this ancient-looking accessory? This is a traditional Tibetan fire starter pouch, known as a Elkag's mag, pronounced chakmak or chukmuk. The metal strip at the bottom is a flint striker. Inside the pouch, a traveler would carry a piece of flint and tinder, like dried moss or edelweiss. To start a fire, you would hold the flint and strike it against the steel edge of the pouch to create sparks. These were essential survival tools for nomadic life in the Himalayas and are often beautifully decorated with brass or silver. Found in the woods in Delaware, these objects look like balls. They feel like natural stone, but are irregular and not perfectly spherical. The finder wondered if they were game balls used by the Lenni Lenape tribe. However, the Reddit community pointed to a more biological origin. These are likely enteroliths, or intestinal stones, from a large animal like a horse or a cow. They form when the animal ingests a small pebble or piece of metal, and mineral layers, struvite, build up around it in the digestive tract over years, similar to how a pearl forms. When the animal eventually dies and decomposes in the woods, these rock-hard stones are left behind. While they look man-made due to their smoothness, they are a natural, albeit morbid, geological formation created inside a living creature. A user wanted to identify a stamp on a metal platter. The mark read, James Dixon & Sons. The platter looked like silver, but they wanted to know if it was solid silver or plated, and what the other symbols meant. The stamp identifies the piece as being made by James Dixon & Sons, a famous Sheffield manufacturer founded in the 19th century. The key letters to look for are EPBM, which stands for Electroplated Britannia Metal. This means the object is not solid sterling silver. Instead, it is a base alloy, Britannia metal similar to pewter, that has been coated with a thin layer of silver using electricity. It's a classic piece of Victorian or Edwardian tableware, beautiful, but not worth its weight in silver. A skywatcher saw 3 bright lights lined up in the sky, not looking like streetlights. They were stationary or moving together in a line. In recent years, this has become the #1 question on skywatching forums. These are almost certainly Starlink satellites launched by SpaceX. When a batch of Starlink satellites is first launched, they travel in a tight train or line across the sky, before spreading out into their operational orbits. Depending on the angle of the sun and the time of day, they can flare brightly, looking like a formation of UFOs or bright stars. As they ascend, they become less visible, but the initial train is a striking and common sight nowadays. A person preparing a veggie tray found a white, silky bulb attached to a piece of broccoli. They pleaded, "Please say it's not bugs." Unfortunately, in the world of organic produce, it usually is. That is a spider egg sac. Spiders often make their homes in the dense florets of broccoli and cauliflower because it provides excellent protection. The white, cottony ball is spun silk designed to protect the spider's eggs. While it is gross to find in your food, it's actually a sign that fewer pesticides were used on the crop. Simply cut that section off and wash the rest. The broccoli is still safe to eat. A user posted a photo of the biggest grasshopper I've ever seen, taken from over 20 feet away. The insect was green, long, and standing upright. That is not a grasshopper, but a praying mantis. These predatory insects can grow quite large, and their upright posture distinguishes them from locusts or grasshoppers. They are beneficial garden hunters that eat other bugs. The fact that it was visible from 20 feet away suggests it was a fully grown adult, likely looking for a mate or a meal. They are harmless to humans, but terrifying to anything smaller than them. A person received a package addressed to them containing a small electronic part they didn't order. It looked like a fuse or a sensor. The user suspected a brushing scam, but wanted to know what the item was. This is a thermal cutoff fuse for a dryer, specifically a Whirlpool model. It's a safety device that kills power to the dryer's heating element if it gets too hot, preventing a fire. As for why it arrived randomly, it could be a brushing scam, where sellers send cheap items to generate verified reviews, or simply a mix-up where a neighbor or a previous resident ordered a repair part to the wrong address. A son and nephew found a coin in a garage. It featured Chinese characters and portraits. Google didn't give a clear answer. It looked like currency, but felt different. This is a Four Beauties souvenir coin, or token. It depicts the four beauties of ancient China. Four women renowned for their looks and influence in Chinese history: Qi Shi, Wang Zhaojun, Diao Chan, and Yang Guifei. These tokens are often sold as good luck charms or tourist souvenirs. It is not legal tender, but rather a collector's piece celebrating Chinese folklore and culture. A user found a small plate with strange raised grooves on it. It didn't look like a standard dining plate. The grooves seemed designed to hold something in place or to grate something. It was part of a set, but the other pieces were missing, leaving the function of this specific dish a mystery. This is likely a saucer or a lid rest for a tea set, or possibly a ceramic ginger grater. If the grooves are sharp, it is a sriracha-style grater for ginger or wasabi. However, if the grooves are smooth and concentric, it is designed to hold a matching teacup or a lid securely to prevent it from sliding. Without the matching cup, it looks like a useless, bumpy plate, but it is actually the base of a specific serving set. A couple bought a 1940s house and found a concrete pad in the yard. It had an intentionally formed shape and raw garlic growing out of it. The finder worried it might be a grave or a vampire tomb due to the garlic. They were planning to use it for compost, but hesitated. You can put away the vampire stakes. This is almost certainly the cover for an old septic tank or a cistern. The concrete cap covers the access hole to the underground tank. The garlic growing there is likely wild onion or garlic, which thrives in nitrogen-rich soil, and a leaking or old septic tank provides plenty of nutrients, fertilizer, to the surrounding ground. It's not a grave, but it's definitely not a place you want to dig up without a plan. A tenant climbed into the roof of their rental house and found a mysterious black box with a blinking red light. They were terrified it was recording them. The landlord had mentioned fake cameras outside, but this device was powered on and hidden in the attic. That device is a DVR, digital video recorder, for a CCTV surveillance system. The blinking light indicates hard drive activity, meaning it is likely writing data. While the landlord claimed the cameras were fake, the presence of a powered DVR connected to wires suggests the system might actually be active. Finding a recording device hidden in an attic is a legitimate privacy concern, and the tenant was right to be suspicious. A mechanic removed a part from a 1998 Honda Civic, claiming it was useless. The owner found the part, which had a broken hose and the marking Denso 2N. They wanted to know if they had been scammed or if the part was actually important. This is a vacuum solenoid valve, likely part of the car's EVAP, evaporative emission control, or EGR, exhaust gas recirculation system. These valves control the flow of vacuum to open and close other valves that manage engine emissions and efficiency. While a car can run without it, removing it usually triggers a check engine light and can reduce fuel economy or cause the car to fail an emissions test. It wasn't a useless part, just a broken one. A visitor to the Isle of Mull in Scotland spotted a small rustic wooden structure standing alone in the grass near Cranure. It looks like a miniature shed or a shelter with a slanted roof and open sides. It's too small for a person and too open for storage. It sits there empty, puzzling tourists who pass by. What is this solitary wooden frame? This appears to be the manger or stable structure from a seasonal nativity scene. Towns and churches often store the statues of Mary, Joseph, and the animals during the year, but the wooden structure itself is sometimes left outdoors or stored in a visible spot. Given the location and the construction, it is waiting for the Christmas season when the figures will be brought out to recreate the birth of Jesus. For the rest of the year, it stands as an empty, waiting stage. Found frequently on construction sites, these objects look like long, solid sticks or tubes. They are slightly translucent and plastic-like. They aren't hollow like pipes, and they seem too unfinished to be a final product. Workers see them lying around in debris piles. What are these sticks? These are industrial hot melt adhesive sticks, essentially giant glue gun sticks. In construction and flooring, heavy-duty hot melt glue is used for tacking down carpet tack strips, securing cables, or temporary bonding. They are melted using large industrial applicators. When a worker drops one or a piece snaps off, it sits on the job site looking like a strange piece of plastic debris. It's just the raw material for a very strong bond. A crafter bought vintage beads marked as wooden, but they felt like plastic. They had concentric circles that looked like tree rings, but they were translucent orange in some spots, resembling tortoiseshell. Wood isn't translucent, so what material mimics nature this well? These are likely cellulose acetate beads. Cellulose acetate is a semi-synthetic plastic made from plant fibers, cellulose, first developed in the late 19th century. In the 1960s and 70s, it was popular for jewelry because it could be formulated to mimic natural materials like tortoiseshell, horn, and wood grain while being lightweight and durable. The translucent wood effect is a hallmark of this material, which is also commonly used for high-end eyeglass frames today. Small brown spots appeared above a kitchen sink and on wooden cabinets. The homeowner noted they used to have a gnat and fly problem, but the insects are gone. Now, these stubborn spots remain. They look like splashes of dirty water, but are hard to clean. Those spots are fly specks, essentially fly poop. When houseflies or gnats land on surfaces, they leave behind small deposits of digested food and regurgitated saliva. Over time, these accumulate into noticeable brown or black speckles. They are particularly common near sinks and food sources where flies congregate. Because the substance is acidic and sticky, it can be difficult to scrub off without damaging the paint or finish on the cabinets. A friend was confused by pink dots and symbols appearing on their driveway and the road in an urban area. It didn't look like artistic graffiti, but rather deliberate markings. They appeared overnight. Is the city planning to dig up the driveway? These are surveyors' marks. Civil engineers and utility workers use standardized color codes to mark underground infrastructure or property lines before construction begins. Pink paint specifically denotes temporary survey markings. It indicates that a surveyor has measured the elevation or boundaries of the land, likely for upcoming roadwork, sidewalk repairs, or utility installation. While annoying visually, they are legally important to prevent excavators from hitting pipes or cables. An unknown brass and chrome-plated object was found in Kentucky, with items dating from 1880 to 1950. It is U-shaped with a shank sticking out of the back. It looks like a piece of hardware, but the shape is designed to fit around a human heel. This is an antique cowboy boot spur. The U-shaped band, the yoke, fits around the heel of the boot, and the shank protruding from the back would originally have held a rowel, the rotating spiked wheel used to cue the horse. The rowel appears to be missing or broken off in this case. Finding one in Kentucky is not surprising, given the state's long history of horsemanship and agriculture. It's a relic of the equestrian lifestyle of the early 20th century. Seen in the sky over Hampshire, UK, strange lights were moving side to side and then disappearing. The observer thought it might be a UFO or a light show. It didn't look like a plane or a satellite. These are searchlights or spotlights from a ground-based event, often referred to as disco lights or sky trackers. Clubs, festivals, or grand openings use powerful rotating lights to draw attention. When the beam hits a cloud layer, it creates a moving spot of light that can be seen for miles. If the clouds are broken, the lights seem to appear and disappear mysteriously. The rhythmic side-to-side movement is the giveaway that it's a mechanical light source on the ground. A resident noticed discolored, glistening streaks running down their bathroom walls. They looked like snail trails or condensation, but were tacky to the touch. They appeared mostly on vertical surfaces. This is a common phenomenon in bathrooms known as surfactant leaching, or more simply, hairspray buildup. When hairspray is used in a humid bathroom, the aerosol particles settle on the walls. The humidity from showers causes the spray to reliquefy and run down the paint, creating sticky, shiny streaks. It can also be surfactants, soapy ingredients, leaching out of latex paint in high humidity. Cleaning the walls with rubbing alcohol or a degreaser usually solves the problem. Bought at an antiques fair for $10, this object was labeled, "Not sure what it is." It looks like a pair of scissors, but instead of blades, it has a small box on one side and a flat plate on the other. There is also a sharp spike on the end. This is an antique candle snuffer, specifically a wick trimmer style. The box captures the charred wick, the snuff, as you cut it, preventing it from falling into the wax or onto the table. The sharp spike on the end was used to dig the wick out of the wax, if it got buried, or to separate the strands of the wick for a better burn. It's a multi-tool for candle maintenance from the days before electricity. A user posted a photo of the inside of their air conditioner asking, "Is this mold?" The fins and fan were covered in a gray, fuzzy substance. It's a common panic for homeowners who fear toxic spores. While it is hard to distinguish without a test, in most cases, this is primarily a heavy buildup of household dust and lint that is clumped together due to the moisture in the AC unit. Air conditioners pull moisture from the air. Wet dust sticks to the fan blades and coils, creating a fuzzy gray coating. While mold can grow on this dust, the bulk of the material is usually just the debris of daily life. However, it significantly reduces the unit's efficiency and should be cleaned. A homeowner was trying to fix a screen door that was too short for the frame. It was missing a piece at the top, leaving a gap. They found the screw holes, but couldn't find the name of the missing part to order a replacement. It's a common frustration, knowing exactly what you need, but not knowing the vocabulary to find it. The part needed is called a door sweep or a bug sweep, specifically a C-channel expander with a vinyl sweep. These aluminum channels slide onto the bottom, or sometimes the top, of a screen door to fill the gap between the door and the sill or header. They are adjustable, allowing the door to fit varying frame heights while keeping bugs out. Knowing the term door sweep or expander makes finding the part at a hardware store much easier. A new homeowner found a white metal pencil left behind in the house. It felt metallic, but wrote in white on dark paper. It wasn't ink or graphite. They weren't sure if it was a specialized tool or just trash. This is an aluminum marking pencil, often used by lapidaries, stone cutters, or welders. The lead is actually a solid rod of soft metal, usually aluminum or silver. When you draw on a hard surface like rock, metal, or dark paper, it leaves a shiny silver-white streak that doesn't burn off under high heat and doesn't wash away easily with water. It's a specialized tool for people who work with stone and metal. Excavated from a garden, this object is a heavy, decorative vessel. It looks like stone or concrete and has a classic shape. It was buried in the dirt, leading the finder to wonder if it was an ancient artifact or a grave marker. This is a standard garden urn or planter, likely from the early to mid-20th century. It was common for Victorian and later gardens to feature cast stone or concrete urns on pedestals. Over decades, these heavy objects can sink into the soft soil or get knocked over and buried by landscaping changes. While it looks like an archaeological find, it is simply a piece of vintage garden decor that returned to the earth it was meant to decorate. Found at a thrift store, this heavy cast iron pan has molds shaped exactly like ears of corn. The user asked, "What food is made with this pan? It seems too specific for regular cake." This is a dedicated cornbread pan, often called a corn stick pan. It is designed to bake cornbread batter into individual sticks that resemble ears of corn. The cast iron creates a delicious, crispy crust on all sides of the corn, which many people prefer over a slice from a large skillet. These pans have been staples in Southern American cooking for over a century, made by companies like Lodge and Griswold. Found in an old attic, this metal toy part looks like a small boat or a pod with a wheel. It has a vintage look, likely from the mid-20th century. The finder couldn't figure out what vehicle it belonged to. This is the detachable sidecar from a vintage toy motorcycle, likely made by a company like Marx or Hubley. These toys were often cast iron or pressed steel. The motorcycle itself is missing, leaving just the passenger pod. The shape, often featuring a small windshield frame and a single wheel fender, is distinct. It's a cool fragment of a larger toy that some collector might be looking for to complete their set. A dad bought a box of strange tools at an estate sale. They look like heavy forks or beaters with wooden handles. They don't look like standard carpentry tools. These are tapestry or rug weaving beaters, sometimes called tapestry forks. After a weaver threads the horizontal yarn, the weft, through the vertical strings, the warp, on a loom, they use these heavy fork-like tools to pack the threads down tightly. This ensures the rug or tapestry is dense and uniform. Finding a set of these suggests the previous owner was a fiber artist or a weaver. Found under a treadmill in a basement, not the user's own, there was a pile of orange dust that looked like Cheeto dust. The user was confused because it looked like fabric but crumbled like a snack. That Cheeto dust is actually the disintegrated padding of the treadmill's walking belt. As the belt ages and rubs against the deck and rollers, the friction grinds the undersurface material into a fine orange or brown powder. It's a sure sign that the treadmill belt is worn out and needs to be replaced or lubricated immediately. It's not snack crumbs, it's the machine slowly grinding itself to death. A diner found a different kind of noodle in their chicken noodle soup. It was a dense, twisted lump of pasta, much thicker than the rest. They imagined a machine malfunction. The user is exactly right. This is a manufacturing defect known as a pasta clump. It happens when the pasta extruder gets clogged or when cut noodles stick together before they are dried. Instead of separating into individual noodles, a bunch of them fuse into a hard, dense mass. When cooked, the outside gets soft, but the inside often remains hard and doughy. It's just a glitch in the soup factory. Found under a sink, this object looks like a plastic valve with a hose attached. The user was unsure if it was a tool or trash. It features a strange middle section that looks like it directs air or liquid. This is a condensation drain trap or a check valve for an air conditioning system. It is designed to allow water, condensation, to flow out of the AC unit while preventing air from being sucked back in, which could block the flow. If this was found under a sink, it might have been plumbed into the household drainage system. It's a critical part of keeping your AC from leaking water into your ceiling or walls. Found in the Northwest Hills, this object is a stone wrapped in twine with a half-inch deep hole drilled into one end. It looks primitive, like a tool used by early settlers or indigenous people. The combination of stone and wood suggests a survival function. This is the bearing block or handhold for a bow drill fire starter set. To start a friction fire, you spin a wooden spindle against a hearthboard using a bow. You need something to hold the top of the spinning spindle to apply downward pressure without burning your hand. A stone with a lubricated hole is the perfect tool for this. It keeps the spindle steady while it spins rapidly to create the ember. What was the weirdest object for you? Let me know in the comments and share this to test your friends. If you love uncovering these mysteries, hit like and subscribe. Your support helps us find more curious explorers like you. Stay curious.